A house, a marriage, and a legacy collide in a tale of love and conflict. Will one man's commitment to his son tear his new marriage apart, or will it bring them closer together? The house that binds us. I never imagined that a house could be the source of so much tension in my life. When I divorced my ex-wife, I thought we were both moving on, leaving behind the remnants of our marriage. We decided to keep our joint investment, a small 2-bedroomed house, and rent it out. After all, it wasn't just a building, it was a part of our shared history and our son's future. My ex managed the property and kept the profits, while I took a backseat, content with our arrangement. Everything was fine until I met my current wife, who entered the picture last year. She's wonderful, and we share so many dreams together, but there's one dream of hers that I just can't seem to fulfill: selling that house. At first, she just hinted at it, her tone subtle, but it quickly escalated. "Why do you still co-own a house with your ex?" she asked one night, her brow furrowed with concern. I sighed, knowing this conversation was inevitable. I explained that my ex and I had discussed keeping the house for our son, to pass it on to him when he was old enough. My wife didn't seem to understand. "Isn't it time to cut ties?" she pressed, her frustration bubbling under the surface. I felt the weight of the conversation pressing down on my chest. It was exhausting to think of the potential legal battles that could arise if we pursued this path. As I lay awake that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was more than just an asset. It was a symbol of my commitment to my son. I had always envisioned it as a legacy, a place where he could create memories, even if it wasn't grand. But my wife's insistence was starting to chip away at my resolve. What if this house truly was a source of strife in our marriage? I needed to find a way to bridge the gap between my wife's concerns and my own beliefs. As morning dawned, I decided to face my wife head on. I told her that the house was not just mine, it belonged to my son and my ex-wife too. I could see her anger simmering beneath the surface, and I knew that this conversation wasn't over. Part 2. The tipping point. Our relationship had always been built on understanding, but now it felt like we were standing on opposite sides of a chasm. My wife had always known about the house, but her discomfort seemed to grow daily. I remember the day vividly. She confronted me after a tense morning, her voice shaking slightly. "Are you really planning to co-own this house forever with your ex?" she asked, her eyes searching mine for reassurance. I paused, choosing my words carefully. "We've always agreed to keep it for our son. It's not just about the money, it's about providing him with something stable." But I could tell this was not the answer she wanted. She felt a sense of entitlement, and I understood that too. After all, she had her own kids from a previous marriage. The reality was, we were part of a complicated tapestry of blended families, and our financial situations were intertwined in ways that were becoming increasingly complicated. I had to admit, the more she pressed, the more I felt my own frustration rise. I loved my wife dearly, but the idea of selling the house felt like a betrayal to the promises I made when I divorced. I could sense the tension escalating at home. She was cold and distant, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our marriage was at a precipice. Days passed like this, each interaction tinged with unspoken words. I could feel the distance growing, but I didn't know how to bridge it. Each time I suggested we talk about it, she would sigh, her body language closed off. I tried to remind her of our shared goals, our dreams of a family, but the house loomed larger than life, an ever-present reminder of my past. Then came the moment that would change everything. I suggested a compromise. What if we allocated some of the profits from the rental to our retirement plans and the kids' college funds? I thought it was a reasonable suggestion, but she shot it down immediately, her anger boiling to the surface. "You just don't get it," she yelled, her frustration palpable. I felt my heart drop. This was not just about a house anymore. It was about trust, loyalty, and the very foundation of our relationship. Part 3. Seeking guidance. The argument was a wake-up call, and I knew I needed to take a step back and evaluate my options. I reached out to a financial advisor, hoping to gain clarity on how to manage this tricky situation. During our meeting, I explained the house's history and my intentions for it. The advisor nodded thoughtfully and suggested that I consider transferring a portion of the equity to my son each year under the annual gift tax exemption. This idea sparked hope in my heart. By gradually giving my son a stake in the house, I could ensure he would benefit from it when he turned 18. I imagined him standing in front of the house, a place filled with memories, ready to take on the world. But I knew my wife would likely have a strong reaction to this plan. When I broached the subject with her that evening, I braced myself for the fallout. "I want to gift our son a portion of the equity," I said, trying to sound as calm as possible. Her response was explosive. "You're just going to keep dragging this out, aren't you?" she shouted, her voice laced with frustration. I felt the weight of her disappointment. I thought I was making a responsible decision, but she saw it as me clinging to my past. The conversation spiraled, and I found myself defending my actions. "This isn't just about the house. It's about giving our son something meaningful," I pleaded. But my wife's anger was palpable, and I could see the hurt in her eyes. I knew I had to tread carefully. "Look, I love you, and I want us to build a future together," I said, trying to bridge the gap. "But this house is a part of my son's legacy." Her expression softened momentarily, but the tension remained thick. I hoped we could find common ground, but it felt like the more I tried to explain, the further apart we drifted. Part 4. The breaking point. Days turned into weeks, and the house became a recurring theme in our conversations, each one more fraught than the last. I could see my wife's frustration mounting, and it began to affect other aspects of our relationship. We were no longer the playful couple who could easily laugh off life's challenges. Now we were navigating a minefield. One evening, after another tense discussion, my wife broke down. "Why is it so hard for you to see my perspective? I'm trying to build a life with you, and this house feels like a constant reminder of your past." Her voice trembled with emotion, and I felt my heart ache for her. I understood her feelings, but I couldn't shake the commitment I had made to my son. We both wanted security, and the house was mine to give him. In that moment, I realized we were at a crossroads. I needed to reassure my wife that I was committed to our future. So I suggested we seek couples therapy. I believed we could work through our differences with professional help. My wife hesitated at first, but I could see her considering it. Maybe it could help, she finally admitted. We agreed to start seeing someone together, hoping that a neutral party could help us navigate this complex situation. However, as we began therapy, I found myself still grappling with the house issue. I felt guilty for putting my wife through this turmoil, but I also felt a sense of duty to my son. The sessions were intense, and the therapist encouraged us to share our feelings openly. Yet every time we returned to the topic of the house, it felt like we were circling back to the same arguments without resolution. Part 5. A New Perspective. As we continued our therapy sessions, something shifted within me. I began to understand that my wife's concerns were deeply rooted in her own past experiences. She had faced her fair share of struggles, and the idea of sharing assets with an ex-husband felt threatening to her. I realized that this wasn't just about the house, it was about trust and insecurity. One evening, while reflecting on our sessions, I decided to approach the topic differently. Instead of defending my position, I opened up about my feelings as a father. I shared how important it was for me to provide a legacy for my son, and how the house represented our shared history. My wife listened intently, and for the first time, I could see a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "You're right," she admitted softly. "I know how important this is to you." It felt like a breakthrough. We spent hours talking, sharing our dreams and fears. I could see the walls between us beginning to crumble, but the house still loomed in the background like an unresolved puzzle piece. Then, a few days later, I had an idea. What if we could transform the house into a family asset instead of a point of contention? I suggested that we could use the rental profits to establish college funds for all the kids, including my son, her stepchildren, and any future children we hope to have. I could see her considering it, a spark of interest igniting in her eyes. "It's not just about your son anymore. It's about building a future for all of them," I said, feeling hopeful. She nodded slowly, and I could sense that we were finally moving toward a resolution. Part 6. Finding Common Ground. After proposing to allocate the rental profits toward the kids' college funds, my wife's demeanor shifted. The idea began to resonate with her, and we spent the next few days discussing the logistics. We agreed that this was a way to unite our families and create a shared future, rather than allowing the house to be a wedge between us. As we worked together to create a plan, I felt a renewed sense of hope. We even reached out to my ex-wife to discuss the changes. Surprisingly, she was supportive of the idea, recognizing the importance of providing for our son and his future siblings. Together, we drafted a new agreement that outlined how we would allocate the profits and the house's future role in our lives. When we presented the plan to our therapist, she was genuinely impressed. "This is a wonderful step toward blending your families," she said, her approval evident. My wife and I exchanged glances, both relieved that we were finally on the same page. As the weeks went by, I watched my wife become more involved in discussions about the house, and we even started brainstorming ways to improve the property together. It felt good to collaborate on something that had once caused so much strife. The house was no longer just a reminder of my past, it was becoming a part of our shared future. The real breakthrough came when I caught my wife looking at houses online. "What do you think about investing in a family rental property in the future?" she asked, excitement dancing in her eyes. I couldn't believe it. We were finally moving toward a unified vision, one that included all of our children. In the end, we found a way to honor my commitment to my son while also building a life together. The house became a bridge, not a barrier, and I felt grateful for the journey we had taken together. We had turned a source of conflict into a shared vision, proving that love, communication, and understanding could overcome even the toughest challenges. I learned that sometimes it takes a bit of turbulence to clarify what truly matters, and as we looked ahead to our shared future, I knew we were ready to embrace whatever came next, together.